asked a lot. But let's move along, and that's a good one to write down. Someone write that down, the context of kids and cannabis in the future with legalization. Deborah Young is here. She is our other aspect of our community entertainment, and she's, please welcome her.
So happy to be here. We haven't been here in a number of weeks. Very exciting to see everybody.
Deborah, of course, will not be out of shape on her radio because she regularly appears on the
Jazz Cabbage Cafe Tuesday nights, 4 to 6. Join us there. Although we didn't broadcast this week either.
That's right. It happens
It's
sometimes.
on a hiatus.
Unreliable radio people.
Really?
I mean, not like us.
Very unreliable.
Yeah. Well, Jim is here.
We couldn't even start on time tonight.
We started on time.
No.
We started.
At
Some
least
people
we
didn't
started.
start.
What is your definition of started?
Better late than never.
Okay.
That's what I say. Not really.
Out in the foyer, strapped to the ship by rope. He's pulling himself in here. Gravity is working against him, but he's making it looks like okay. Our dear friend, we like to call him the recovered police officer, Steve Miller. Steve Miller.
Oh, good to be here. Good to be back with everybody. Oh, good to be here. Good to be back with everybody. And hope everyone's having a good summer.
So far, so good. So far, so good. It is like the middle of July right now.
Party at
We still
Steve's
got
house
time to
this
screw it up.
weekend.
It'll be good.
We do, and of course, we're blessed tonight to have with us champion of forfeiture and mothering, our good friend. I like to call her Kid Charlemagne. Please welcome Charmy Golson.
Hi, Michael. I'm so glad we're all back. Power to the people.
We've got running the video, Tommy Two-Tone over there, 867-5309. Don't forget it. Welcome. And, of course, T-Pain running around out there someplace.
T is here.
He's our rover. Plays all positions whenever he's needed. We made him in here for one of our topics. So, if I understand the outline, we're going to talk a little bit about the new conditions. Yep, it's over here. The new conditions that have passed and what is going on with that. And we're also going to talk about some of the impact that may have, if any, meaning, and what maybe people can do going forward if they're interested in helping or being a petitioner, or what they need to do if they want to do their own petition. Certainly something that anyone can do under the circumstances. We can explain that away tonight and encourage those to take that particular action. The other topics we're going to talk about are weird times that are occurring in my world a little bit, just how strange, and as we're entering into what I think we could describe are the end of days, but not in the biblical sense, because this, of course, is 2018, and it is the year of the Jesus Wars. So I'm not talking about end of days in that regard. I'm talking about end of days, which is that we think legalization of marijuana. It's not really called that, is it? It's really more of a treat it like alcohol world that should happen.
It is. It's the legalization.
We can talk about that too. I want to talk about that. Is it legalization? It's called to regulate marijuana.
Regulation, right?
Regulate like
Something
alcohol.
can be
Regulation
legal
of
and be
alcohol.
regulated.
Well,
But if it's regulated, then it's legal.
Certainly not
Under the
illegal.
regulations.
you would think so.
Under the regulations.
You would think so. However, nothing about the law effectuates the public health code.
Correct.
That is true.
And this is something that we've heard before. This is what they said about the MMA.
Yeah.
So the argument exists there. Now, so that's that. Of course, and you guys. I mean, that's I think it comes down to, as we've said before, leadership, right? We think if the people voted for the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act with the intention of it stopping from arrest people, arrests go up and forfeiture goes up, something's not right. There's a problem there. But we're going to talk a little bit about that, I guess. Should we just go on about that? I think that's the thing. Let's talk about that, because who knows anything about the legalization piece? Oh, you guys do.
Yeah, we might know a little bit about it.
All right, so I know the debate that has gone on. First of all, the It's a voter initiative. The Senate did not. The legislature did not take it up. They're not going to control it. Any amendments are going to be
Thank God for
three-quarters. It doesn't mean that it can't be done, but who knows? Maybe the Democrats blue wave it. I mean, it does have an impact on that, right? I mean, not that the Democrats are going to be good about it, but
had they taken it up, and this is what intrigues me about the Republican Party in Michigan, is it was for their own good, and they could have amended it out of existence, just amended it out of existence, and then it would have never shown up on the ballot. And I'm not advocating that they should have, so don't anybody get my words twisted, but they really truly would not support a ballot initiative or any sort of initiated law on marijuana, even full well knowing that they could be slitting their own throats.
But isn't this this is a typical thing that we see in Lansing and in Congress, is they don't have the balls to do anything in either direction.
Even in their own self-interest.
Even in their own self-interest, they don't have the balls to do it. So,
but
it's better for us.
It's much better for us.
For the public, and the public will make their choice.
There has been a time, and I think where we stand right now with the regulated medical system is indicative of this. Like, it's kind of the political world we're living in. Whoever's in power treats the other side like crap. They don't do anything in the interest of the cause. It's more for what they do politically. And, we've had a lot of divisiveness across all parties and whatnot. But for some reason, people align themselves and perceive the Republicans that have had a dominance in the legislature as the antagonists here. Is this a fair statement?
In Michigan, I think Deb would agree with this too. It's fairly common knowledge that the Republican Party in Michigan doesn't really support the legalization or use of recreational marijuana.
No,
what if Tim Beck would take issue with that?
I don't think he would. I think he would agree with it.
He would definitely agree with it. And the ones that have come forward lately, and Tim will agree with this too, are coming forward because they're looking at some kind of monetary gain.
Right.
They have not been people who have
We
been
did
there
pass
before.
the MMFLA.
Yes.
Which means there's a majority of people that voted for
Well, it was a bipartisan,
marijuana.
definitely.
Right, but we all have to remember there was a huge incentive there because at the time, the Republican Party truly viewed what was going on as far as the commerce of marijuana in the state of Michigan as completely illegal. And they kept referring it to like the Wild West of marijuana. So there was an incentive there for them to implement a regulatory scheme that would generate tax revenue, and that's exactly what they did. But even then, not the entire party got behind that. There were a lot of dissenters that just refused. I mean, if we look back, we remember that they had a tough time getting it out of Senator Jones' committee, and they had to have it discharged from the Senate floor in order to get a vote on it because they could not get Tori Roca, Tani Shoemaker, and Patrick Colbeck to agree to allow those bills out of committee.
You're saying the first go around or this last go? Oh, you mean
no?
This last time, right?
Those
right.
bills never
last,
made it through
right.
the Senate Judiciary Committee. They had to shortcut it because they were going to die in committee. And I think that just shows you that the Republican Party in Michigan really does not support the legalization of marijuana. And I'm not saying that the Democrats have done a bang-up job either. I think that they've certainly done better than the Republican Party. And
the party of less bad on some
with
issues.
the exception of Jeff Irwin and a few other.
Yes,
until recently, of course, we have all three of the gubernatorial candidates coming out and forth. But this is very, very recent.
Yes.
Basically, the Detroit or the Michigan Dems have dodged this issue for years.
Yeah,
Yep.
now they're all
Just
coming
dodged it.
around.
Yeah,
now they're all coming around.
because of Dana. I mean, they
Well-
saw exactly
Yeah.
what it did for Dana.
That's an interesting point. I had some information passed along to me. The popularity of cannabis for the Democrats. I was told that the National Attorney General's Democratic Attorney General's Association, was that the DAC,
Yep.
something like that, who was very interested in Dana's campaign, by the way, sent out literature to all the candidates. So this is like, where does the Attorney General race stand politically as it relates to other Democratic issues, right? Because they're the law enforcement folks, right? So are they going to be, aligned with the Democratic Party as a whole? Are they going to be more law enforcement oriented? Are they going to be making progressive decisions? Where does it stand? So it turns out that the national organization sees dating as race as, if not the most important or the one that they're most interested in. And what they'd done is passed out literature based on their polling of what the Attorney General's position should be. And guess what was on that particular list? Cannabis legalization. Now, you know how we talked about how the opponent came around, we thought because he was getting harassed and berated at events that he went to, there'd always be someone sneaking in and asking him why he prosecuted Ryan Bassor and, lied about it and has been lying about it, and that's why he came to light. No, he got the literature. Look to revisit the issue. But that, to me, is fascinating, if you think about it, right? The attorney generals, nationally. That means, because there's Democrats in the South. There's Democrats in Texas. There's Democrats in Louisiana, Alabama. So those state attorney generals are being told that is the policy. I don't think they may not win, but that's what they're standing by, and maybe it brings people to the table because who knows?
Interesting.
I'm sure it does, but these people, the ones that are making data-driven decisions, they see the data, and the data is very clear. It's that, number one, the majority of people in the United States of America support the legalization of marijuana, period. It's not by a significant margin, but it's the majority. But what's more significant is that every single year it increases. And that will just continue. So they see the writing on the wall, and they know that if they are going to maintain any longevity in office, that they have to embrace this issue. And it should be easy enough, especially considering that Colorado didn't blow up. Everything's fine. People are still going to work. No one's, traffic fatalities have not risen. I mean, none of these things that they said were going to happen happened.
I'm pretty sure they made millions of dollars.
Of course they did.
Billions, I'm sure, by this point.
Of course they did.
Billions and billions.
Yes.
And billions.
And I think the most important piece is that it took this crime away from law enforcement. And it allows people to start actually trusting their law enforcement officers again. I mean, it lets them focus on crimes that actually matter. Now, if we can only get the rest of the victimless crimes off
what kind of
radar,
sucks for this whole thing, and I agree with you, but people are there only because it's popular. That's the one thing that really bothered me.
That's politics, man.
Well, I think they all should have to be rebaptized or something. They have to account and
hit them with some
their
tomato
sins.
sauce or something.
No, I'm saying like Debbie Stabenow, for example.
Oh
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
she's horrible.
Or like Sandra
She's
Levin,
horrible.
or like
Well, he's done.
or any of
Sandy
these folks-
Levin's done, so we don't.
I know that, but the lack of interest, and then to have the party come around, they should have
But
to
Sandy Levin has not come out and said.
No,
we,
he hasn't.
legalization-
Andy has.
Andy has, his son. Sandy will never say that. He has been
Right.
so
He's-
staunch.
he's old school,
He's
man.
old school. He's done. He's done.
Or how about anybody?
them.
Hey, who are the people are calling? They want to, they want to.
It's all of them.
It's all of them. It's sickening.
It's
But
Gary
they- Where
were you last year?
Gary Peters, same thing. I mean, it's and
But they all
they
issued
just know.
statements.
I remember
Remember, they all
Attorney-
issued statements
Remember
right
Attorney-
after the petitions were validated.
It sickens-
They
it
all
makes
say
politics-
that they were for it. They were for legalization.
Yeah.
These people have never been approachable
Certainly,
about this
Debbie
issue.
Stabenow's voting record in Washington says something very different.
Right.
Do you want him to say a
Not
prayer
that I'm
Maybe
glad
they
that they're
should.
saying this. That's fine.
Say a prayer. Yeah,
Say a prayer.
like they do in front of every piece of legislation?
they should.
Yes.
They should say a little prayer and violate
Say
some
a
more
little prayer.
separation of church and state. It'd be terrific. What I'd really like is for people like Debbie Stabenow to go back to Washington and to advocate for this stuff. If they're truly believers and believe that this sort of thing should occur, they can help us at the federal level in getting the federal government to stay out of our state and leave us the hell alone.
That's really what they need to do. There needs to be a state
Starting by
transition.
getting rid of 280E, right, Michael? I mean, that should be step one.
Step one. Absolutely. Let's figure something else out here. I want to go back to the legalization piece and recognizing that it does not amend the public health code. And I say that because the interpretation has always been that, especially on points of order, such as how can the smell of marijuana be probable cause of a crime and considered contraband per se when the state has authorized me to make that smell